paid for. Because sometimes warnings are not enough. Sometimes wisdom and love still can't stop someone from walking directly toward the same fire. And that's exactly the story people believe is unfolding right now with King Harris, the son of legendary rapper T.I. and R&B star Tiny Harris. A young man born into fame, raised in wealth, given opportunities most people could only dream about. Yet somehow, he keeps finding himself closer to the same road that once led his father to prison. Now reports are circulating across social media, claiming that King Harris could be facing serious prison time. The internet is exploding with opinions. Some people say he brought it on himself. Others say he's just a young man who denied his father. A painful question: did King or could have saved him? We're going to break down the entire story. What really happened? The decisions that led to this moment. The warning signs that appeared years ago. And why so many people believe this situation could change the Harris family forever. Because this story isn't just about arrests. It's about legacy, pride, rebellion, and the dangerous pressure of growing up famous. So buckle in, because the timeline of events is more complicated, more emotional, and more revealing than most people realize. Imagine being born into one of the most recognizable names in hip-hop history. Your father is a Grammy-winning superstar. Your family has reality TV shows watched by millions. You grow up in mansions, travel the world, and live a life that most teenagers could only imagine. But instead of embracing that privilege, you try to convince the world something else. Something harder, something tougher, something the streets might respect more than fame. That tension between who King Harris really is and who he wants people to think he is may be the key to understanding everything that has happened. And to understand that story, we need to go back to the beginning. The legacy of the Harris name. King Harris, whose full name is Clifford Joseph Harris III, carries a name that holds enormous weight in hip-hop culture. His father, T.I., also known as Tip, built a legendary career that helped define the sound of Southern rap. He's a three-time Grammy Award winner. He's been called the King of the South, and his influence helped Atlanta most powerful cities in music. But the legacy of T.I. is not just about success. It's also about mistakes. Before becoming a global star, T.I. experienced the harsh realities of the criminal justice system. He dealt drugs as a teenager. He was arrested multiple times while still young. And later in his career, he served federal prison time charges. T.I. has spoken of those mistakes. He has talked about the cost of living that lifestyle, the loss of freedom, the reputation, the pain experience behind bars. In many ways, the story is about Webb, which is watching his similar pattern, has been so because when some walk that and they're begging you follow, ignorance becomes even more dangerous. Growing up in the spotlight, King Harris, 2000 in Atlanta, Georgia, unlike his father, built his in the streets up. King grew up surrounded from the very beginning. His childhood was on reality shows like Tiny. The family hustle and friends and gave audience look at the Harris household. Millions watched the family. They saw him arguing in the home. Right there, hidden show. Part of the public from a people name. Famous can become already sees you legend. Creating your own identity becomes difficult. And for King Harris, seems to have played music career. Many chill musicians eventually decided to pursue. Around 2020, and releasing songs named Kid or trap beats and melodic. He released essentially dropped an EP. A Thick King. The hinted at sting. A young balanced two identities. One tied to royalty, the legacy of his father, and the other tied to a lifestyle, often glamorized in hip-hop culture. But music wasn't the only place. Appearances on television, while on entertainment program Nation. He had ever built a successful career. Yet the heading King Harris focusing on something else, not television, but signs of trouble. The earliest King Harris problems began through violence. Into surface showing him art lot. Came another video food worker. Shortly after that, altercation house in Atlanta. None of these crime, but together forming a pattern. Public confront, aggressive, and aggressive someone trying to huff. And people in the question them today. Why would someone born into wealth and opportunity so hard to old street kid? It didn't make sense. But for King Harris, seemed like a persona he tamed. A persona, the idea of stand style that looked money he actually. The first 22 experienced his run-in with women. He was taken into, but the reason for a violent crime, it wasn't a major traffic violation. Reports initial stop, something as miring a seat, unpaid mall, arrested said it was an afterward institution. Social media celebrating the setback or comeback. To many, that response was the situation, not as a lesson, but almost like a badge of honor. And that's when his father decided to speak publicly. T.I.'s warning. During an Instagram live session, T.I. said something that would later become chillingly prophetic. He looked directly into the camera and said, "If he keeps this up, he's going to prison." He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't pretend everything was fine. He spoke from experience. He explained that he recognized the same energy in his son that he once had himself. And he knew exactly where that energy could lead. T.I. described King as a good kid chasing the wrong identity. A young man trying to imitate a lifestyle that wasn't truly his. But the most powerful part of his warning was this. He admitted that there might be nothing more he could do. Because sometimes, people have to learn their lessons the hard way. The music video incident. Fast forward to 2024, and another moment would push the tension between King and his parents into the public spotlight. A video began circulating showing King Harris filming. They were surrounded while waves. To some viewers, it looked like typical rap video imagery. But for two men standing nearby, it looked like a dangerous mistake. Those men were T.I. and Boosie Badazz. Both rappers have personal experience with serious gun charges. Both have spent time dealing with the legal consequences of that lifestyle. And when they saw their sons holding weapons on set, they immediately stepped in. The moment was intense. T.I. asked a question that came straight from experience. He said, "Why y'all got so many guns?" Then he posed another question that cut even deeper. If the police showed up right now, who would claim ownership of those weapons? That's not a theoretical question. That's a question asked by someone who has lived through the consequences. But King pushed back. He argued that having guns wasn't illegal. Technically, he wasn't wrong. But T.I. wasn't talking about technicalities. He was talking about the bigger picture. The image, the lifestyle, the legal risks that come with portraying yourself a certain way. And the father's message was clear. This road ends badly. The Falcons' game argument. If there were still doubts about the growing tension inside the Harris family, they disappeared in November 2023. During an Atlanta Falcons game, King Harris went live on Instagram. What followed was a heated argument between him and his parents. But this wasn't happening behind closed doors. It was happening in front of thousands of viewers online. During the live stream, King claimed he wasn't raised in luxury. He said he grew up with his grandmother instead of enjoying the wealthy lifestyle people assumed. His parents immediately pushed back. T.I. and Tiny disputed the claim in real time. The exchange became emotional. It wasn't just a disagreement. It felt like a deeper conflict about identity. A son rejecting the narrative of privilege, and parents trying to remind him of the truth. For viewers watching online, it was uncomfortable, because the argument revealed something deeper than rebellion. It showed a family struggling to reach someone who might not want to listen. Later, T.I. spoke about the situation again. And this time his tone was different. He said something that many parents understand, but never want to admit. He explained that he had already tried everything. Discipline, punishment, advice, guidance, every tool a parent could use. And at a certain point, those tools stop working because the child becomes an adult, and adults make their own choices. T.I. said there might be nothing left for him to do except watch the consequences unfold. For a father who had already lived through prison, that realization had to be painful. And unfortunately, the next chapter of King Harris's story would prove that those fears were not unfounded. Because in October 2024, everything would escalate during a traffic stop that would change the conversation around him forever. And what happened that night would bring together years of warnings, missed court dates, and questionable decisions into one moment that law enforcement could no longer ignore. So by the time October 2024 arrived, this was no longer a story about one bad moment. It was no longer about one argument, one parking lot clip, one outburst, one embarrassing live stream. This had become a pattern. And patterns matter, because isolated incidents can be explained away. People can say, he's young. They can say, he made a mistake. They can say, he'll grow out of it. But when the same type of chaos keeps showing up again and again and again, At some point, it stops looking like bad luck. It starts looking like direction. And that is exactly why the October 2024 traffic stop hit so hard. Because it didn't feel random. It felt like the next step in a story people had already been warned about. The night everything tightened around him. According to reports, King Harris was driving a BMW in Dunwoody, Georgia. He pulled out of a gas station, and in doing so, he allegedly came close to hitting a police officer's cruiser. Right there, the situation changed. An officer turned on the lights and pulled him over. Now, even at this point, this still could have been one more ugly headline. A bad stop, a tense interaction, maybe a citation, maybe a warning. But once the officer approached the vehicle, the situation escalated quickly. Police reportedly smelled marijuana coming from the car. And while speaking to King, the officer noticed something else. A firearm on his hip. That detail changed everything. Because now we are no longer talking about attitude, internet perception, or social media clout. Now we are talking about police procedure, legal risk, and the kind of facts that show up in reports, in courtrooms, and in public records. The officer instructed him to put his hands on the wheel. And this is where one of the most painful contradictions in King Harris's public image became impossible to ignore. Not long before, he had publicly said, "I don't even own a gun." But during this stop, there was reportedly a gun right there on his hip. And whether you view that as hypocrisy, confusion, posturing, or something else entirely, one thing became obvious. The public image he had been building was colliding headfirst with reality. The bench warrant that changed the story. Then came the detail that turned this from a bad stop into a much bigger legal issue. When officers ran his information, they discovered that King Harris had an outstanding warrant for failure to appear in court. That matters because it reveals something bigger than one traffic incident. It suggests that this wasn't just about what happened that night. It was about unresolved legal problems from before. According to reports, those earlier charges dated back to August 2022 and included speeding, knowingly driving on a suspended license, and driving under the influence of drugs. Then came the part that makes the whole timeline feel heavier. There had been an arraignment notice. There had been a required court appearance, and he reportedly failed to show up. That failure led to a bench warrant. So now let's look at the full picture. A young man already warned publicly by his own father. A young man already involved in repeated public confrontations. A young man already facing earlier charges. Then, while still carrying unresolved legal baggage, he gets stopped again. With marijuana odor reportedly present, and a firearm visible on his hip. That is the kind of sequence that makes people stop defending you and start fearing for where this is going. Because this is not just immaturity anymore. This is accumulation. Cooperative but not reflective. One important detail in the police account is that officers reportedly described King Harris as cooperative during the arrest. That matters because it means this was not a chaotic or violent confrontation with police. According to reports, the firearm was removed without incident. He complied. He stepped out of the vehicle. He was detained and placed in the patrol car. That detail is worth acknowledging because accuracy matters. But cooperation during arrest and accountability after arrest are not the same thing. And that distinction matters too. Because once King Harris was released, the tone of his public response didn't suggest reflection. It suggested dismissal. He returned to social media and essentially framed it like this was all temporary. Like it was business as usual. Like nothing had really changed. And for many people watching, That reaction was more alarming than the arrest itself. Because the scariest thing about a warning sign is when the person receiving it treats it like background noise. "I'm back, I'm straight," the message people heard. After his release, King posted and spoke in a way that sounded defiant rather than humbled. The message the public heard was simple: "I'm fine, I'm back, everything is normal." But everything was not normal. Because normal people do not keep collecting these kinds of moments without consequences. Normal people do not get repeated warnings from fathers who already know exactly where this road goes. Normal people do not keep stepping into public controversies, legal issues, and reckless optics while also preparing to become parents themselves. That's why the public response was so harsh. Because people weren't just reacting to one post. They were reacting to the pattern behind it. To the refusal to pause. To the refusal to say, maybe I need to rethink this. And when the internet sees someone treating serious moments like nothing, it gets less sympathetic very quickly. Becoming a father in the middle of the storm. And then came another major life change. At the same time all of this was unfolding, King Harris was about to become a father. That part of the story is especially emotional. Because for many people, parenthood is the moment everything changes. It's the moment immaturity becomes responsibility. Ego is so due. Young man is supposed. It's not me. And reports said King's arrest came shortly after his baby shower. T.I. had already revealed publicly that King was expecting a son. And in classic T.I. fashion, the announcement but also with a warning beneath the joke. He teased that he would help raise the child in a way that would make King understand what he had put his own parents through. People laughed, but underneath the joke was pain. Because fathers know something sons often don't. Life has a way of returning lessons. And sometimes the lesson you refuse to learn as a child comes back when you become a parent yourself. Then in November 2024, King welcomed his son. That should have been a turning point. That should have been the moment the story shifted. That should have been the moment people could say, he's growing up now. He sees what matters. He's about to move differently. But based on everything that continued to follow, many people came to the opposite conclusion. They saw no clear sign that fatherhood had yet changed the direction. And that is heartbreaking. Because a child should be more than a photo, more than a caption, more than a symbolic milestone. A child should be a reason to rebuild. Months later, body camera footage from the October 2024 arrest began circulating online. And this is where the story took another turn. Because before body cam footage, people argue over narratives. They argue over headlines. They argue over what really happened. But when body cam appears, the public feels like it is seeing the raw moment for itself. And that changes how people react. The footage reportedly showed King being calm and compliant, which matched the officer's written description. But it also reportedly showed something else. Frustration, not sorrow, not fear, not visible remorse. Frustration, as though the whole event was an annoyance. As though the system interrupting him was the problem, instead of the series of decisions that brought him there. Now, to be fair, anyone being arrested is likely to feel frustrated. That is human. But in the court of public opinion, context matters. And when the footage is layered on top of years of public posturing, confrontations, warnings, and dismissive reactions, that frustration lands differently. It makes viewers feel like the lesson is still not sinking in. And once people believe someone refuses to learn, their concern slowly turns into resignation.
I
Really
never,
that long. Wow.
That
never
is when
said
the
I was a
commentary
gangster.
shifts from,
So y'all
will he
telling me
figure
I'm
it out,
trying to be a gangster? I never
to,
said that.
maybe he
Creates
won't. The reports
top
of a
tier
5-year
for
sentence.
I
like
wasn't
Then
really
the
trying to
internet did
use
what the
the
internet
system
always
for
does.
nothing that I had
It
going. I was just
escalated
around regular
everything.
kids my whole life, you know what I'm saying? I
Posts
was in
began
public school
circulating
and shit
across
like that, so I
TikTok,
always
think
Facebook,
that
myself.
YouTube, and gossip pages claiming that King Harris had been sentenced to 5 years in prison.
For him, I think
Now,
been
this
what
is where things get tricky. Because social media has a habit of taking a developing legal situation and presenting it like a finalized ending.
Situation and shit
It
started,
turns possibility into certainty.
appreciate the moment.
It turns speculation into announcement. It turns may face into has been sentenced.
I had to go
And by the time those claims spread far enough, millions of people accept them as fact. That is what made this moment so explosive.
like
Because the internet wasn't
I
just
started
discussing an
Science
arrest
First.
anymore.
I was saying
It was discussing a supposed sentence,
suburbs.
a dramatic one,
Because everybody
a
wants to
life-changing
build their
one,
own name, so
and the
when I
rumor
say
itself became part of the story. Whether every headline was accurate or not,
yeah, I know
the
I
fact
can
that
go
such
ask
reports
Pops
spread
for
so
money.
easily
I know I
tells you
can.
how the
But I
public
think
now
the
views King
understanding
Harris.
and perception.
People found it
But
believable.
that's all it be because
That's the
you know
real
from
issue.
the area
They
where you
found it believable that the son of T.I., after years of warnings and controversy, could now be starring down major prison time. And that alone says everything about how far his image has fallen.
what held it up.
Well, you
There
still
is a
got time.
tragic
Yeah,
quality
you
to
still
this
got time.
story
One of the things I
because
always
it
wanted to ask
feels
you,
so
man,
avoidable.
To meet with
Not
the governor,
easy,
Jeff,
but
talk about the
avoidable.
taxes, 'cause it was,
And the reason it feels that way is because T.I. didn't stay silent. He didn't ignore the signs.
Now we standing on business.
He didn't
Talk to
pretend his
us
son was
about
perfect.
Wasn't really, you
He
see what I'm
warned
saying?
him,
I wasn't big
publicly,
on using the show.
directly,
people
emotionally,
listening. Nah, wait, whoa,
repeatedly.
that's not gender specific.
He said
Like, they
prison
wanna
was
see me go
inevitable if this
live
continued.
with guns and stuff, and I
He
know
said he
nothing. Like, if I
recognized the
was
energy.
crying,
He said he had
it
already
was
lived this
because
exact
I
kind of
couldn't-
recklessness. He said there was only so much a parent could do. So when the story kept unfolding exactly the way he feared, it made the whole thing more tragic. Because this is not a father watching his son walk into something he doesn't understand. This is a father watching his son walk into something he understands all too well. There is a special kind of helplessness in that. A helplessness only people with scars can
But you
feel.
never were an overspender.
Because when you already know the ending, watching someone ignore every warning feels unbearable.
Things like that, and I always
The curse of famous
And I
sons.
want to ask about that
Now
because
let's step
how
back
did
for a
you go
moment
about getting
and talk
of
about something
the-
deeper. Because King Harris's story is not just about one young man making bad decisions.
like that, how
It also reflects a
coached you,
larger
and then he was
pattern
like,
we've seen many times before.
But that was just a house.
The sons of famous men trying to build an identity in the shadow of enormous legacy. That shadow is heavy, especially in hip-hop.
I think that
Because in
without
hip-hop,
having an interview with
identity
her,
is
I think that-
everything. Authenticity is everything. Respect is everything. And when your father is already a giant, the pressure to prove that you are your own man can become overwhelming. Some sons respond by building something completely different. Others try to imitate the father. And some go even further than the father ever did, not because it's wise, but because they think intensity equals legitimacy. That might be one of the most important ways to understand King Harris. Not as someone simply chasing trouble for no reason, but as someone deeply trapped in a performance of toughness that he believes he needs. The tragedy is that the performance itself can become real. At first, it may be just image, just language, just posture, just videos, just attitude. But eventually, if you keep feeding the performance, you begin living inside it. And once that happens, the consequences stop being cosmetic. They become legal, personal, permanent. Then came 50 Cent. As if legal trouble were not enough, King Harris also inserted himself into one of the loudest family feuds surrounding T.I. in 2026, the renewed conflict with 50 Cent. And this is where things got even messier. The feud between T.I. and 50 Cent had already been bubbling because of old public tension and the long-discussed Versus situation.
At that point,
Shots were thrown in interviews. Memes were posted. And then things escalated when 50 reportedly posted content involving Tiny. That's when King jumped in to defend his mother. Now, at the most basic human level, a son defending his mother is understandable. Many people respected that instinct. But the way he chose to do it is what pushed the situation into darker territory. Because King did not respond with restraint. He did not respond with maturity. He did not respond in a way that elevated him. He responded by going scorched earth. And when you cross certain lines publicly, especially involving dead family members, the issue stops being standing up for your people and starts becoming something uglier. Reports described posts involving 50 Cent's late mother. A shirt, images, tombstone imagery, diss tracks, escalation after escalation. And that is where even T.I. himself reportedly stepped in and said, enough, that matters, because T.I. is not exactly known for being soft in conflict. He understands beef. He understands pride. He understands defending family. So if even he looked at his son's response and decided it had gone too far, that tells you something. It tells you this was no longer righteous defense. It had become excess. And excess is one of the clearest signs that emotion is driving the wheel. T.I.'s conflict as a father, one of the most interesting and emotional parts of this entire saga, is T.I.'s reaction to his sons stepping into public conflict. On one hand, he was proud that the men in his family were ready to defend the women in their household. That's an old-school instinct, a deeply cultural instinct, a family instinct. And you can hear why a father would feel some pride in seeing his sons protect their mother's name. But on the other hand, he also knew that King, in particular, was the wrong person to be feeding with more fire. Because when a young man is already living too close to the edge, conflict can feel like justification. It can make recklessness feel honorable. It can make cruelty feel righteous. It can undo years of teaching in just a few emotional moments. And that seems to be exactly what T.I. feared. He wasn't just managing a rap feud. He was trying to stop his son from using that feud as permission to become even more destructive. That is a different kind of fatherhood. That is triage. That is trying to hold together discipline, loyalty, image, family pride, and public consequence all at the same time. And no matter what anyone thinks of T.I., it is hard not to see the emotional weight of that situation. The contrast nobody can ignore. What makes the King Harris story feel even sharper is the contrast between father and son. At the same time King is being discussed for arrests, warrants, confrontations, and reckless internet behavior, T.I. is still standing as a veteran artist with a long career, cultural influence, and the ability to command attention as a grown man who survived the consequences of his younger choices. That contrast hurts, because it reminds people that the blueprint for recovery already exists in the family. T.I. made mistakes, yes, serious ones, but he also built something afterward. He turned pain into legacy, error into survival, a prison sentence into a comeback story. So when people, they are not just they are man warnings, wisdom, opportunity, family relationships, and an example of what happens if you keep pushing too far. That is why patience runs out faster, because the safety nets are visible. The guidance is visible. The off-ramps are visible. And still, the car keeps moving in the wrong direction. What this is really about.
That means he's not looking
At its
for me.
core,
Like, I
this
said,
story
all
is
right,
not
so they
really
ran out of
about
time
celebrity
already.
gossip.
Before, because I was like, yo, nah,
It's
this
not
is-
even
this is
primarily
perfect.
about
Yeah.
criminal
Just trying to-
charges.
Look, I think
It's
it
about
was
something
surprising
more
they actually
uncomfortable.
filmed it.
Self-destruction in plain sight. Because
You know what I'm
that is
saying?
what
I
makes
just-
people feel
Found it
uneasy.
that quick.
The public has
Like, you
watched
read
the
that
build-up.
That's the Serenity
They have
Prayer.
watched the fake
And
hard image grow. They have watched the clashes with authority. They have watched the father warn him. They have watched the mother defend him.
You bought Tyson.
They have watched the internet laugh, criticize, and react.
Like 19 years old.
And through all of it, the central question remains,
To the brand, it's like
does King Harris actually want a different life?
Talking about changing it.
That is the question no lawyer can answer.
Is it pain?
No parent can answer. No podcast can answer. No fan can answer.
$70,000 a month.
Only he can.
So I stayed there for
Because guidance means nothing if it is rejected. Resources mean nothing if they are wasted. Love means nothing if every helping hand is treated like interference. At some point, every person, famous or not, reaches the edge where excuses stop and choice begins. And maybe that is where King Harris is now.
You think there's something
At the edge of choice.
extreme had happened.
Not internet choice. Real choice. The kind that shapes the next 10 years. The kind that determines whether his son grows up with a father who matured or a father who kept performing chaos until chaos became his address. Here is the part nobody likes to admit. Sometimes the most painful sentence is not the one a judge gives you.
They almost looked at it
It's
like
the
I
one
had
you
to go
slowly
to
build for yourself.
Louisiana.
One decision at a time. One ignored warning at a time. One fake image at a time. One public outburst at a time. One missed court date at a time. One I'm fine at a time. One I got this at a time. One it's not that serious at a time.
The great unifier.
Until eventually,
Speaking of unifiers,
the
we're
walls
here
around your
together
life
to
are built
celebrate
not by one catastrophic event, but by your refusal to stop laying bricks. That is why this story feels so heavy. Because even if some of the wildest headlines turn out to be exaggerated, the deeper truth remains the same. King Harris has been moving in a dangerous direction for years. And the danger is no longer abstract. It is not symbolic. It is attached to records, footage, reports, consequences, and public deterioration. That is real. King Harris born into legacy, into privilege, warning. Very few that combination. Very few young men get to grow up with both enormous opportunity and a father who can say, from lived experience, I know exactly wwhere this road leads. And yet here we are, a son fighting against the truth of his own upbringing, a father watching old mistakes come alive in a new generation, a family trying to hold itself together while the internet turns every misstep into entertainment, a newborn son entering the world in the middle of all this noise, and a public now wondering whether this is still a rough chapter or the beginning of a much darker ending. Maybe King Harris turns it around. Maybe fatherhood eventually settles him. Maybe legal pressure wakes him up. Maybe the embarrassment, the footage, the internet backlash, and the fear of losing more become the shock his life needed. That possibility still exists. But hope means nothing without change. And change is the one thing nobody can do for him. Not T.I., not Tiny, not fans, not critics, not the internet, not the courts. Only King Harris can decide whether he wants to inherit his father's wisdom or only repeat his father's wounds. And that is why this story hits so hard. Because this is not just about the sentence people are discussing online. It is about a deeper sentence. The sentence of becoming the very thing everyone begged you not to become. And if he does not stop, That will be the real goodbye. Not goodbye from social media.
Where you from or what you
Not
doing or
goodbye
how-
from headlines.
And
But goodbye to the life he still has time to save. And maybe that's the saddest part of all. This story is still unfinished. This is not a final chapter yet. It is a crossroads, a painful one, a public one, but still a crossroads. Because no matter how bad the pattern looks right now, there is still one truth that remains. A man can change, a father can grow, a son can wake up, a legacy can be repaired, but only when the performance ends, only when the excuses end, only when the person in the mirror stops blaming the world and finally tells himself the truth. And for King Harris, that moment may be now, or it may never come.
She only knows that.
What do you think? You believe King Harris is just a young man making public
She's a
mistakes?
journalist, right? Yeah.
Or do you think this has become a serious pattern that could permanently damage his future? Do you think fatherhood will change him? Or do you think T.I.'s warning is already coming true in real time? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more deep dive stories like this, breaking down the truth behind celebrity headlines, family legacies, hip-hop drama, and the choices that change lives, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Because some stories are bigger than gossip. Some stories are warnings. And this might be one. There is something heartbreaking about watching someone repeat a mistake that their own family already paid for. Because sometimes, warnings are not enough. Sometimes wisdom, experience, and love still can't stop someone from walking directly toward the same fire. And that's exactly the story people believe is unfolding right now with King Harris, the son of legendary rapper T.I. and R&B star Tiny Harris. A young man born into fame, raised in wealth, given opportunities. Most people could only dream about. Yet somehow, he keeps finding himself closer and closer to the same road that once led his father to prison. Reports are circulating across King Harris could this prison time. The internet with opinions. Some people himself, others say he is trying to prove himself father's shadow. They are asking Harris ignore effort of saved. Today break down what led to this moment, the warning signs that people believe could family forever. Because this story isn't just it's pride, rebellion, pressure of us in timeline more complicated, more emotional, and more than most people realize. Being born into one of the most wrecked in hip-hop history. There is a grand superstar. Your family has reality TV shows watched by millions. You grow up in mansions, travel the world, live a life that most teenagers could only imagine. But instead of embracing that privilege, you try to convince the world you're something hard, something tougher, something the streets might respect more than fame. That tension between who King Harris really is and who he wants people to think he is may be the key to understanding everything that has happened. And to understand that story, we need to go back to the beginning. The legacy of the King Harris' name is Clifford J.I., name that holds in hip-hop culture. His father, T.I., also known as Tip, built a legendary career that helped define the sound of Southern rap. He's a 3-time Grammy Award winner. He's been called the King of the South, and his influence helped shape Atlanta into one of the most powerful cities in music. But the legacy of T.I. is not just about success. It's also about mistakes. Before becoming a global star, T.I. experienced the harsh realities of the criminal justice system. He dealt drugs as a teenager. He was arrested multiple times while still young. And later in his career, he served federal prison time for weapons. T.I. openly about the car lifestyle, the nation, his fans, bars. Anyway, story is about way. Exactly why watch pattern has been so troubling for fans. Because when someone has already walked that road, and they're begging you not to follow them, ignoring those warnings becomes even more dangerous. Growing up in the spotlight, King Harris was born on August 25, 2004, in Atlanta. Unlike his father, who built his creeds up, surrounded by very beginning, childhood was on reality. Shows like T.I. and the Friends and Family Hustle gave audiences an inside look at the Harris household. Millions of viewers watched the family grow. They saw the children laughing, arguing, learning, and navigating life inside a celebrity home. And King was right there in the middle of it. He wasn't hidden from the spotlight. He was part of the show, part of the brand, part of the public image. From a young age, people already knew his name. But growing up famous can be complicated.